in the fall, in November. And it was in one of the barns for the...
Called the RDS.
What is it?
The RDS, the Royal Dublin Society.
Aha.
That's what they call it, yeah.
So it was very, very cold. People were in their jackets, and during the concert, I've never had an audience sing with me the way these people did. And, you know, to a large degree, that's part of what I like about the Irish people. They're singing people, and with great lovers of liberty and freedom. And anyway, in this particular concert, everybody would sing, and the frost of their breath while they were singing was hanging over the crowd, and we'd all take a breath at the same time, and it'd clear all of a sudden. And then it was really a beautiful, beautiful evening for me. I'll never forget it.
Because only you could see that as well.
I suppose so.
What about playing live? Is that something you want to continue doing?
Well, not
definitely.
Yes, I love to sing for people. I love singing live. I love performing, and it's really my favorite thing. And so I hope to always continue doing that as long as there's an audience out there. Not necessarily at the pace that I've been keeping recently, or over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I'd like to slow that down a little bit. But yes, I hope to always be able to sing for people.
Because it must be very difficult for you to maintain the standards that you set yourself, and also being away from home so long.
Well, you know, home is a state of mind, actually. It can also be a very specific kind of place. And I've only been home 16 days this year. So that's out of balance. At best, it's out of balance. And I'd like to get that a little bit more in balance. But even a day for me in my home, which I love very, very much, and with my kids, that sort of builds me up to go on and do whatever it is that I have to do. And I feel I'm working as hard as I am because I feel I'm doing something in the world. And I can't say no to the opportunities that are given me to have an effect in people's thinking and people's looking at the world and the way we live and the way we relate to one another. I think it's a critical time in the history of life on the planet Earth, and I have an opportunity to give voice, to articulate to what I think a lot of people are thinking. And if there's the opportunity to do that, and through that having people say, yeah, you know, that's actually how I feel, then perhaps there's the opportunity for real change in our lives, and change, I think, for the better.
Of course, being away from home is something you feel like you were rare to, because you were a mobile family, weren't you, when you were growing up?
I'm an Air Force brat, a military brat, so there was all that movement, and I think that's sort of in my blood.
All right, well, let's hit one of those subjects now. Nuclear war. I mean, you are particularly outspoken about this. How close do you think we are to it?
I actually don't think we're close to a war. You know, I don't feel that kind of tension. But I think that the arms race and the conflict that we hold in ourselves, especially between the U.S. and the Soviets, Western and Eastern thinking to a degree, I think it's dangerous. And it's impossible to imagine building all of those weapons and having, if not an accident, having them used one of these days intentionally. And as long as they're there, there's that possibility. And we've learned over the past couple of years the potential effects of even what they call a limited nuclear war. And when people talk about a limited nuclear war, they have a word for it, and it's not deaths anymore. It's the mortality figures or something like that. And it's not human beings, mothers and fathers and children dying, you know. So you can start to be callous about that. It's the same kind of thing that happens if you live all of your life in the city and never get out and touch the water or the countryside and get a feeling for that. You become callous about that. It no longer means something in your life. So if you start to talk about human beings that way, there starts to be that callousness in your heart, in your spirit. That, to me, is very, very dangerous. We no longer think of people as people. We think of societies, we think of isms, communism, socialism, whatever, but we don't think about people, and I think that that's dangerous. Music has always been thought of as a universal language. It's my experience that that's true. It's also my experience that people all over the world are really the same. You know, you hear it said all the time that children are the same, little babies are the same. Of course they are. The birth cry of every newborn baby is the same. But you don't hear people talk about the fact that parents are the same. And I tell you that they are. And grandparents are the same. And lovers are the same. And if you talk in that kind of category, that includes all of us, all over the planet. That includes people who live in mud huts in Africa. That includes people who live in communes in China. That includes people who live in apartment houses in the Soviet Union and in small little farmhouses here in Ireland. We are all the same. And it's time for us to begin recognizing that we are a family as humankind, and to live out of that knowledge and that perspective. Global thinking, you see. And that doesn't diminish that you can be Irish and I can be American, and someone can speak French, or someone can have the incredible range of Chinese culture that history shows us. But we're all human beings, and we have to start living out of that. That's my feeling. So what I do with my music is I travel all over the world, and you know what's funny? My songs are so much about America. Take Me Home Country Roads, West Virginia, Rocky Mountain High in Colorado, the wheat fields of Kansas in Matthew. And yet people all over the world relate to these songs. And the guy who writes these songs writes a song like Annie's song, which people use in their weddings all over the world. You know, and out of all of that comes a situation where I've been on television. I'm recognized everywhere. I have yet to walk down the street of any town, any city, and in fact, last December I was in the largest slum in the world in Bombay, India, and people started following me around. John Denver, sing Country Roads. So that's pretty remarkable. But it also signifies how small the world is today. And if you have that kind of a situation, that kind of celebrity, then perhaps there's some value in that, and you ought to use it responsibly. And so that's what I'm doing with my music. And the thing that I tell people in my concerts is that parents speak to their children from the heart, and it's the heart that hears. You know, when you're trying to raise your child, lovers speak from their hearts, and they hear with their hearts. And the heart only knows the truth. So if we speak to one another and address one another and relate to one another heart to heart, we want peace in our lives. We want the opportunity to be able to work for a living, to make our own way in the world, to find a partner and to raise a family. That lives in the heart of every man and every woman on the planet, you see. Now, what we have to recognize is whether that's being allowed, if that opportunity is still there for us in the world in which we live. And I say to you that there are a lot of places in the world where that is no longer possible. I met people last April in Australia, young couples, a man and a woman. Both of them have a job, and they cannot afford to have a child. They cannot afford to have a family. Something's wrong if you can't afford to have a family. I mean, what are we defending? What are we securing for ourselves? I know young people in the United States, you know, there gets to be a point when you want to leave home. You're going to go out on your own and make your own way, get your own place, and create your own family. And young people in the United States are finding out that they can't do that. They've stepped out there, and they've tried to make it, and they can't make it. They can't make enough to afford to have a home and then to gather dependents. So they have to move back with their parents, which diminishes both of them, I think, as human beings. Again, what are we securing?
All right, well then, as an optimist, what sort of new start would you be hoping for?
I think it's two things. I think, first of all, it's a sense of global thinking, of recognizing the human family as a whole, recognizing that it's no longer a world of you or me, which is the way it's always been. You or me, which means me first. You see? It's always been that way, but that doesn't work anymore. So this is a shift in consciousness. And this is a Copernican shift. It's a shift in the whole way that we look at ourselves and at the world. It's now you and me.
The nearest thing to a global coming together, if you like, has been Band Aid and Live Aid and Bob Geldof. But of course, you were actually involved in that sort of thing before this was thought of at all, weren't you? As part of the UN.
I've been involved in the hunger issue
with the UN
for over 15 years. I'm an ambassador for UNICEF. A couple of months before the BBC film on Ethiopia was shown, I was in Africa making a film about the projects that were working there. I served in 1978 and 79 on President Carter's Commission on World and Domestic Hunger. I was one of the instigators one of the catalysts for that commission being formed, for our government starting to address the issue of hunger. So I've been involved in it for a long time, yes.
And that was a great, I think you'll agree, step forward. Your idea and then
it was
Live Aid idea.
It was a great thing that Mr. Geldorf was the catalyst of. I object to his saying at this point that he's done his bit now. He's out of it. I don't think that you can get out of it. I don't think we're going to end hunger until every one of us has as ending hunger the way that I live my life. That's part of why I'm working as hard as I do. This is a commitment, you see. And it's not to an event, and it's not just to raising people's consciousness, it's to the end of hunger. I know from having served on this commission and the work that we did, the study that we did, the information that we received, we produce enough to feed twice the population of the planet right now. There's not too many people. I also know that where we have increased productivity, that infant mortality has gone down and the population growth rate has gone down. This is proven. So we're not going to have too many people if we provide enough. Our Hunger Commission report said that if we do more to serve peace in the world and national security by ending hunger than we could ever hope to do with all the nuclear weapons that you can imagine. I believe that to be true. So I believe that an investment in the end of hunger is the kind of investment we need to make now for defense and for national security. You see?
Yes, I do.
And my suggestion is, you know, in the United States this year, we're spending $300 billion on defense. Now, not all of that is weaponry, of course, but still $300 billion on defense and national security. So I'm not in favor of a unilateral disarmament. That's not going to work. That's scary. I am in favor of a nuclear freeze, and sooner or later I think that's going to be a step that we're going to take. But what I'm in favor of right now is let's take 1% of our defense budget. That'd be $3 billion. And let's take half of it, and let's invest it in Africa. Africa has the potential to feed not only itself, but all of Western Europe. There's that potential there. Let's invest in that. Let's make that happen. Let's invest in poor countries like Mexico, where in the United States we have a real problem of people crossing over the rivers and jumping the fences, illegal immigration into the United States. We make a whole to-do about the symptom, which is illegal immigration, but the problem that causes it, we're not doing anything about that. Let's take half of that 1%, which would be $1.5 billion. Let's put some of that in Mexico and make living in that country and the possibility, the potential of that country more attractive than coming to the United States. All right? Now let's take the other half of that 1%, $1.5 billion, and let's invest it in our own country. And let's help the farmer. We lost 43,000 small family farms last year in the United States. That's over 800 a week. Now my father was raised in a small family farm. So many of my songs come out of that environment and that aspect of my growing up. My favorite times when I was a child were being on that farm. People can't live in a small farm anymore and make their way in the world. I think the same is true of small family businesses. And I happen to think that the foundation of any society is a small family farm and a small family business. And if you lose those, you're going to lose the society. And I think you have problems here in Ireland with unemployment. And I think that they are an effect of this nuclear arms race. I think that they are an effect of the economic process that goes on around the world, of which the United States and the Soviet Union are the primary instigators. We have to turn that around. And I think once people begin to recognize that this is affecting every aspect of our lives, and what we most want in our lives and what we most want for our children, then people will begin to say, no, wait a minute, we don't have to do it that way. And things will start to change.
Let's move away from that for a second and talk about some of the songs I'd remember, like Annie's song. I mean, give us the story again for the umpteenth time.
I wrote Annie's song on a ski lift one day. The ski lift takes about 10.5 minutes. And I had just done a run down a very difficult ski slope. And I did it from the top to bottom, nonstop. So I was in shape, I'm pumped. And I get down to the bottom and I ski right onto the ski lift. There was no line. So I got right in the ski lift and my legs are burning and my heart's pounding and I'm out of breath. And I'm thinking about that and thinking, that's as good as I've ever skied. And really feeling alive, you know? And it's like skiing filled up my senses. And I started thinking about that because there's There's not only the physical sensation that I just had, but you're in an environment that's incredibly beautiful. There's a color sky, the blue that you only see from mountaintops. It's a different blue.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. It's a deeper blue. And that's beautiful to me. And the sound of people skiing, and the sound of the lift going over each tower, and birds singing, and air the way it smells here after a fresh rain, you know. There's something for everything. It fills up your senses. So I started thinking of the other things that fill up my senses. And the first thing that I thought of was my woman. And so then I wanted to say that to her, that she fills up my senses. But how do you say that? So it was like I started thinking of the other things: a walk in the rain, a night in a forest, a sleepy blue ocean, the mountains in springtime. Huh? 10 minutes, and I had a song. I skied right down to my car, went home, walked into my studio, picked up my guitar, and sang the song. And I would say it's my most popular song all over the world. There's people who use that song all over the world in their weddings.